kindly administer the oath to the nominee, please?
Take the oath, please. I, as Owusu-Ekuful,
swear by the Almighty God
swear by the Almighty God
that the evidence I shall give before this committee,
that the evidence I shall give before this committee,
touching the matter in issue, shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
So help me God.
Honorable Ursula Owusu-Ekuful, Mrs. On behalf of the committee, I congratulate you on your nomination to the position you held in the previous government. This is your third term as a member of parliament, and you've been a member of the appointments committee since you came to parliament. You're quite well known in the house and outside the house. If there's any other thing you wish us to know, apart from what we know already, kindly share. But otherwise, kindly give us a brief introduction of yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There isn't much to add to the CV which is before you, save that to say that I was raised in Presbyterian trained, so the fear of the Lord, stickler for hard work, and firm but fair, and I believe in giving back to society as well, and also remain a lifelong advocate for the rights of women and children, believing that we are equal partners in development with our menfolk, and will do whatever I can to raise a generation, to help raise and nurture a generation of confident, articulate, assertive, intelligent, outspoken young women who can also hold their own, hardworking, diligently, in whichever position that they find themselves. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Honourable members, that is our nominee. The floor is open. Question.
Chairman, if you permitted me before you, let me congratulate the nominee, the Honourable Ursula Owusu. I've had the privilege to be at the Ministry of Communications as Minister. But can you just go to page 1 of your CV, Chairman? Page 1. Harrow International School. Is it in Akimoda, Brekum, Suma? Or where is it? On Fansman Girls Secondary School, I can understand. But just for the record, if you look at it, then when you come to page 2, Member of Parliament, Minister for Communications, and you say 6th January 2020. Is that it? It should be 2021, I believe. So look at it at page 2 of your CV. And Chairman, if you allow me a warm-up question. Ministry of Communication, COVID, is a major problem for Ghana today, which calls for urgent action, which will require mainstreaming of ICT in the provision of public services and public goods, whether it's education, it's health. What will you do for Ghana to take advantage of the Ministry of Communication to leverage ICT to respond to COVID?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The whole world has been rocked by this pandemic, and the hope is that we can use all the processes at our disposal to be able to help us fight the pandemic, and one of which is technology. Mr. Chairman, without the requisite digital infrastructure, it's difficult to roll out any digital intervention at all. But since the opening or the onset of this pandemic, we have tried to assist the Ministry of Health to leverage on technology to help us in the fight against the pandemic. The emergency communication system is supposed to help with contact tracing. Once the numbers of those who are positive are given to the operators of the system, the National Communications Authority, they can input that and help with contact tracing. We assisted them to facilitate barcoding for the public testing laboratories to enable them to be more efficient in the way they collect samples and deal with samples in a more proactive manner. There's a lot more that we can do. For the public services, we had already started rolling out the Smart Workplace Virtual Office solution as far back as 2018. And we're directed to scale it up because it enabled all public officers, servants, officials who were on the platform to be able to work virtually. So during the lockdown, it didn't mean that the offices were also locked down. You could have your office in your pocket, work from home remotely on the platform, share correspondence, deal with all the issues that you would necessarily have to deal with, have secure internet access, high-speed internet access, and we provided them with bandwidth as well so that they could work remotely from home. We also set up the COVID-19 tracker app to enable us self-report and assist the Ghana Health Service with the information that it collected in terms of heat maps to be able to identify the areas where concentrations of COVID-positive patients were and to enable people to be advised to stay away from them. All of that, the infrastructure was put in place. Ours was to facilitate and to enable the relevant agencies to do their work better with technology. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman, I'm holding here document you may not have in your possession, fair to you. I'll read aspects of it. This was the civil society platform on the Kelvin GVG contract. I see Kwesi Prempe, who was then chairman. And now, international traffic management. We needed to do that as a revenue assurance measure. Initially, this was a relationship between the National Communications Authority, the Ministry of Finance and GRA, and others. Now, if you come to the document I've referred to, dated 21st October 2018, from Imani and Co., subsequent to what was in court, there were issues of absence of parliamentary approval for the initiative, whether there was value for money of the transaction, at what cost did you procure the contract, and what are the details, what is this supposed to deliver in terms of improved revenue assurance from our international traffic management system. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The common platform was established to give effect to the Electronic Communications Act, and the contract was signed in December 2017. Section 7 of the Communications Service Tax Act mandates the Minister for Finance and Communications to establish...
Sorry, Chairman, the act number and the year, the act number.
Act 864.
Thank you.
Mandates the Minister for Finance and Communications to establish a common platform to monitor and verify the actual revenues that accrue to service providers for the purpose of computing taxes due to the state. Prior to 2017, initiatives had been taken by government to give effect to it, but no common platform had been established for this purpose. And in March 2017, a stakeholders consultation was held. Two look at the current situation and see what we could do to improve upon it. Mr. Chairman, at the forum, which was chaired by the senior minister, attended by the ministers for finance, communications, and their deputies, teams from the NCA, GRA, led by the Director General and Commissioner General, the CEOs of the Telecoms Chamber and all their members, and the representatives of AfriWave and SUPA. Frank, open discussions were held by all present, and it became clear that neither SUPA nor AfriWave was collecting real-time data from any operator, and the meeting agreed that the provisions of Act 864 needed to be implemented to the letter, and the NCA would be the technical body to acquire and implement a common platform, working with GRA under direction of their ministers of finance and communications for successful implementation. And subsequently, the NCA conducted site visits to other African countries that were implementing a similar process, shortlisted 4 companies for restricted tendering, since this is a specialized area and not everybody has expertise in that. Approval was granted by the Public Procurement Authority to commence this process. And the Central Tender Review Committee also gave approval for the contract to be awarded to the selected vendor, Kelny GVG.
Chairman, can I request the nominee, the approval letter from the PPA and the approval letter from the Central Tender Review Committee?
Yes.
It will be important that we have copies, or if you want to refer to it, you give us the date and the details. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'll provide copies to the committee. Kelny is a Ghanaian company that entered into a joint venture with the Global Voice Group. And the joint venture has been established as Kelny GVG Limited, a Ghanaian company, to implement the common platform under the contract signed by the Minister for Communications. It being a multi-stage process, we were required to get the Minister for Finance's approval, which was also done. So, Mr. Chairman, at every stage of the way, all the laws regarding procurement was followed to the letter, in this case, before the contract was awarded. Now, the equipment is hosted at the National Communications Authority. It is owned by the government of Ghana, unlike in the previous case, when the vendors owned and operated the equipment.
Chairman, can the nominee respond to my question? Was there value for money? How do you respond to the Imani claim of cost inflation in the contract?
Mr. Chairman, the introduction of the common platform resulted in cost savings of $1.1 million monthly to the government of Ghana, as against the previous situation. So over the life, even by abrogating the previous contracts with SUPA and AfriWave and entering into this contract alone, we achieved $1.1 million cost savings. That alone provides less cost and more value. Now, unlike the previous contracts, this platform offers real-time monitoring of 2.5 billion transactions a day within the telecom sector.
2.5 billion of what? Money or traffic? Volumes?
Monitoring of 2.5 billion transactions per day within the telecom sector, i.e. calls, SMS, mobile money transactions. It also provides mobile money monitoring as an added component. The fraud management component of it has 4 functionalities: revenue assurance, traffic monitoring, fraud management, and mobile money monitoring. That's what the common platform that we've implemented does.
Was mobile money anticipated in Act 864?
Mobile money provides revenue to the state. Act 864 indicates that we should set up a mechanism for monitoring to verify actual revenues.
Chairman, my question is specific. You have to monitor international traffic, volumes of calls, inbound calls coming in. Was mobile money anticipated under the contract from the Central Tender Board and the PPA?
Mobile money was part of the requirements of this contract, that it be monitored as well. If the chairman would permit me, I would read the provisions of Act 864. It says, Section 14, the Communication Service Tax Act, Amendment Act 2013, Act 864, which amended Section 14 of Act 754, specifically enjoins the Ministers of Finance and Communications to A, establish a monitoring mechanism to verify the actual revenue that accrue to vendors for the purpose of computing taxes due to the government under the Act. So that's what it does, and that's the Communication Service Tax Act. So that's all taxes.
Is there a tax on mobile money in Ghana?
All taxes due to the state under the Communication Service Tax. Currently, there is no tax on mobile money.
Okay, so leave it there. The essence of the initiative, as I understand it, from 2010 through 2011, 2012, was to build capacity. It cannot continue to perpetuity that some entity is running it, because the understanding is that the NCA must have capacity to take over and run it as a regulatory function. What will you do to ensure a seamless transition of the process?
That process has already started, Mr. Chairman. The NCA and the GRA are ultimately expected to take over and manage this platform for their own regulatory purposes and to assist them to also perform their obligations under the Act. And so that knowledge and technology transfer is currently taking place. And that's why I was explaining that the equipment is hosted in the NCA, their staff are on it, GRA staff are also there managing that system, the revenue assurance component that they are interested in.
Minister, answer me simply. When do we see this engagement or this activity undertaken by the NCA and not a third-party contractor in the foreseeable future? Having built capacity, you must transfer technology. The technology should be transferred to the NCA as a regulator. When will you do that as minister, if you become?
The NCA would have to inform me that they are sufficiently capable of undertaking this task. And when they do, the process is seamless, it's handed over to them. I cannot indicate at which period they would be comfortable to take over, but we would engage in those conversations, and since they've been working on this platform for a while, they should be able to indicate that they're sufficiently equipped to be able to handle it.
When I just do one more on telephony. You have your telephone with you, I have mine with me. When you go to the signal area on settings and you've traveled abroad, if you've traveled abroad extensively, signal strength and seamless transition to available connectivity. If I were in this chamber, Parliament, and depending upon technology which is deployed, MTN was stronger. Even if I were on Vodafone, my signal should be able to pick up MTN and allow me for use of it. If I were on Vodafone and MTN, based on investment in technology, was stronger, even as you move around airport, your signal keeps changing. Are we there? Will you lead Ghana into a regime where we can have this seamless transition and seamless connectivity. So that if we're traveling on the Bekwai road to Kumasi, and probably MTN is not strong on that road, Vodafone is. I'm still entitled, because of the emergency nature of communication, to have access. What will you do as minister to guarantee that? And Chairman, thank you. I'm done for the warm-up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That is national roaming that the Honourable Minority Leader is talking about, and the process has already started. I believe sometime last year, we notified the regulator to sit with the operators to ensure that they link up their system, agree on the appropriate tariffs to facilitate national roaming. As part of the Rural Telephony and Digital Inclusion Project, which was passed, which contract was approved by this House sometime last year and has already started operating, all the network operators are going to share that infrastructure, rural telephony infrastructure, and roam seamlessly. So your network, your phone will pick up the strongest network in your whichever area you are, once you are on that rural telephony network. And we would extend that to the other services provided by the network operators. And the regulator is currently working with them to facilitate that. Thank you.
Yes. Oh, you are the first to be here, Reverend. Here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the privilege, and congratulations, Honorable Minister nominee. Honorable, in Ghana's analog to digital broadcasting migration project, which is a project that is currently underway with the supervision from your ministry, in the course of the implementation, your good outfit was accused of having set up a board for the digital terrestrial television DTT broadcasting infrastructure without recourse to National Media Commission, which is the body constitutionally mandated to appoint boards of all state-owned media houses. What explanation do you offer to this committee in response to this allegation?
Yes, Honorable Minister, we're waiting for you.
Mr. Chairman, on assumption of office, I was notified that the digital terrestrial television migration process was already ongoing. There was a stakeholders committee that had been set up. A draft policy had already been completed, and the contract to construct the platform had been built and awarded and was in the process of being built. There were a few things major, though, that needed to be done to complete that process. The policy that was drafted was subjected to stakeholder consultation, continuous stakeholder consultation. And it was agreed that even though the draft policy indicated that both the NCA and the National Media Commission were to be members of the board, the stakeholders were of the opinion that as regulators, it would not be right for them to be actually on the board. And so they were removed from the board. Now, this is a platform that has been set up by government to facilitate the switchover from analog to digital television. The initial conversations I was made to understand invited independent broadcasters and GBC to collaborate to construct the platform, and they were unable to do so. And so government took over and did it. This is infrastructure. It is not involved with content. It does not determine what is broadcast on the platform. It is like a road that has been constructed for all road users to utilize, from bicycles to articulated trucks. You decide what you put on that road. So as infrastructure, in the opinion of the stakeholders, it did not fall within the definition of state-owned media as contemplated by the Constitution to mandate the National Media Commission to oversee it and to provide its board. I have not appointed any board. The policy was discussed by the stakeholders. They determined what the membership of the board should be, and that is what has been put in place. The policy has been approved by Cabinet, and that's what we're working on. So it is incorrect to say that Ursula has appointed any board in violation of the Constitution or the law. I can understand that certain stakeholders feel strongly about it, but neither myself nor them can determine what the actual situation would be, and they know what to do in the event that there is disagreement about the definition of a term in the Constitution, and I urge them to do so. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I am satisfied with the response on this question, so I move to my second and last question. The advent of COVID-19 has altered many aspects of our day-to-day lives. In the line front of education, it has occasioned virtual learning, and much in the same way in business transactions, virtual or online business transactions have become the norm. What interventions would you undertake when your nomination is approved to ensure that ICT infrastructure is made available in many parts of the country, and in particular rural areas, so that they can also benefit from the times that we are in?
Mr. Chairman, one of about 90% of the questions that I'm asked I was asked in the last Parliament as Minister related to availability of networks in the various constituencies around the country. And I've been at pains to explain that under the license conditions of the network operators, they're only required to provide service in the district capitals. That's what they are mandated to do, all district capitals. Beyond the district capitals, it would be a commercial decision that they would take if, in their opinion, they would get adequate returns on investment. The vast majority of our population also lives in places that are beyond the district capitals. So the Universal Service Fund, managed by GIFIC, has been providing infrastructure in the rural areas over the years. That has been a slow process, and we were of the opinion that we should not leave any part of this country behind in our quest to digitize and digitalize our economy. And so we needed to extend connectivity to all parts of the country, and the government should seek the funding for that to be done. And so last year, we brought the Ghana Rural Telephony and Digital Inclusion Project contract to this House, which was approved. And that would provide 2,016 communities with cell sites around the country to cover about 25% of the population that is currently unconnected. And we're hopeful that by the end of this exercise, which has already commenced, Mr. Chairman, I think since the project was launched in Atribuana in the new Edubiase constituency I believe in November last year, to date, about 400 cell sites have been constructed. They are in the process of being connected. At the end of the process, which is expected to take 18 months, all the 2016 cell sites would be constructed and would be connected, and they would form the nucleus of the rural telephony network that all the network operators would utilize to transmit their services to the people. And that's what I spoke about in an earlier question, that it would mandate national roaming in those areas that are covered by the network. So we're hopeful that by this, no matter where you are in this country, you should be able to receive voice and reasonable data signals. It will not cover every section of the country, but we're looking at a technology mix to see how we can also extend connectivity to the parts of the country that would not be covered. It is imperative that we do that, and I'm glad that the initiative has already started. If you look at the need for virtual learning, e-health, the applications in agriculture, in transportation, digital financial services, all of that should be available, and more should be available to all citizens in any part of this country. And the way to get that done is to provide the digital infrastructure on which the services would be transmitted for the use of our citizens. Thank you.
Honorable Minister, talking about cell sites, bring into contention some communities in my constituency. Control Cornell, do I say? I don't know whether those are what you call cell sites. Towers have been mounted, but they appear to be powered by solar energy. And it's not very stable. I just discovered that I get calls from that area of my constituency early morning, most of the time before I wake up. I miss the calls. When I try to call back, I can't get them. When I found out, they say it is only in the mornings that they get the signal. As soon as the sun starts coming out, they lose the signals. How is it that you build those things that they can serve only in the mornings?
Mr. Chairman, thanks for bringing this to my attention. If this House deems fit to confirm me, I shall notify GIFIC and the network operators to see to a resolution of this matter as quickly as possible. I wish I could have given you a reason for it, but unfortunately, I can't.
Those are not part of your cell sites. Those are the network providers' systems. Is that right?
Well, those are part of the cell sites that were set up by GIFIC in conjunction with one of the network providers. It would not be part of the new rural telephony network that I've just spoken about. But even so, they need to look at that. One of the reasons that they gave me earlier for congestion and inability to get service on some of the sites that had already been giving up was congestion, and that they didn't provision it adequately to take into consideration the growth in the use of the network. They thought that they were small communities, so they wouldn't need large capacity. And they found that once the cell site was up and service was being provided, a lot more people used it. So what they thought was not even a commercial site has had to be upgraded to be commercial site. So I'll be grateful if you would give me the names of these communities, and I'll forward it to them for action to be taken on.
My
Thank
people at Control Cornell, they are happy to hear that we are discussing this matter. I will follow it up with you. Thank you.
Chairman, but just the minister to follow up with Chairman, couldn't you have saved the nation some costs if you use the principle of co-location? Why must you construct 2,000 cell sites when you can take advantage of co-location in order to deal with challenges such as Bekwai and many other areas in the country? Because as the policy leader, and you have to get the regulator to do it, why can't we take advantage of co-location when we are still spending much more money to build new cell sites?
Mr. Chairman, no sites exist in those communities. So nobody can locate on any site there. Nothing exists there. So it's a green field which has to be built from scratch. Now they are designed in such a way that all the networks will co-locate on the sites once built. So they don't also have to replicate that infrastructure out there. It reduces the capital expenditure of the networks and makes it easier for them to extend services to the unserved and underserved parts of our country which are covered by this project. The technology being used also provides a saving on the traditional cell site architecture, and from the technology service providers and the GIFEC officials, they tell me that it provides a savings of up to about 60% on the cost of the traditional telephone network infrastructure. And I'm happy to be associated with that. It's called the Rural Star technology, and it was developed in Ghana by Huawei, specifically for rural areas. It's being replicated, used around the world now, but they call me the mother of Rural Star because of the pressure I put on them to develop this technology based on our specific needs, which is proven to be of global applications and is helping the rollout in rural areas around the world. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Very well. Yes, Honorable Mrs. Designate.
Thank you very much, Chair. Honorable nominee, still on policy, you are talking about infrastructure in terms of internet service. Still with COVID in mind, even though it is obvious that now internet use is more than it used to be, data is still very expensive in Ghana. You can look at Nigeria. An average 1 gigabyte costs about $2.78, but here in Ghana it costs an average of 3.6. What policy direction will you give to guarantee cheap or reasonable cost of data? Look at how we are using data for schools, for Zoom meetings, among others.
Mr. Chairman, Ghana actually has one of the lowest data costs in the region, and that has been confirmed by tests conducted by reputable organizations worldwide. Ghana, in the latest study conducted by Cable UK, in a worldwide study which analyzed data from 5,554 mobile data plans in 228 countries between 3rd February and 25th February 2020, found that the average cost of 1 gigabyte in Ghana was ranked 34th in the world and the first in West Africa for offering the cheapest data service per gigabyte in the aforementioned studies. The NCA has also conducted billing verification tests which confirm this finding. This is not to say that because we are the lowest per gigabyte cost in the region that it is okay. No, more people are using the internet and data, and we can do more to drive down the cost. And the experience is that the lower the cost, the more the usage. And so on the operation of economies of scale, the companies will not lose out as more people will be using the data, and so they would benefit. Now, some of the measures that we have already taken to facilitate, that's the study, to facilitate the low cost of data is what we implemented in 2019, the non-expiry of bundles. We notified all network operators through, the regulator notified all the network operators that if you purchase a bundle and you haven't used it all up and its validity period expires, you shouldn't lose the bundle that you have, the unexpired bundle, the unused bundle that is on the expired product that you buy. So when you top up, it should be rolled over and you should be allowed to enjoy the benefit of that. The communication service tax was also reduced from 9% to 5% in response to COVID, and that also engendered a reduction in the cost of data for the consumer. We assisted the network operators too with free spectrum. The MTN and Vodafone had challenges with spectrum because of increased usage, and so they were granted the use of free spectrum so that they could also provide affordable services to their consumers. They were also given the right to use certain technology which had been limited to the rural areas alone to be used in the urban areas as well. It's called UMTS. I don't want us to get into that. It is technical. We're also going forward would implement the unified licensing regime for the network operators. So it doesn't matter whether it is 2G, 3G, or 4G spectrum that you have. You can use whatever available technology there is on the available spectrum that you have to deliver the service that you want. Currently, the licenses are spectrum specific, and the technology is tied to the spectrum that you can use. But now they're freeing it up so that with the advances of technology, you can use whatever technology you want to deliver the services that you want. Now, a lot of people are downloading a lot of stuff, Netflix, YouTube, Google, etc. We're going to have conversations with these service providers so that they locate cached service in Ghana. So you don't have to use expensive bandwidth to download stuff from wherever their data centers are, but you'll be doing it locally. And we believe that that would also reduce the cost of data to the subscriber. Currently, the question that the minority leader asked about co-location, the sharing infrastructure, passive infrastructure, towers, so they can co-locate on their towers. But there's a lot more they can do. And so we're going to encourage the network operators to share active infrastructure as well. They are not just the towers, but radio access networks, the fiber resources, whatever, even the network of agents that they have. Can they share that and split the cost so that ultimately it reduces the cost that is passed on to the subscriber? Fiber cuts are also a major challenge, which increase the operations and maintenance cost of the networks, which they ultimately pass on to the subscriber. So as part of the security architecture that we're putting in place, as part of our cybersecurity as well, we're having conversations about designating fiber optic networks as critical national information infrastructure. And once that's done under the Cybersecurity Act, then several rules kick in, and it is treated as a critical information resource and protected, so that the road construction, and the other construction work, which is cutting the fiber and imposing a lot more cost on the network operators, which they ultimately pass on, will be reduced. But all that will be done in consultation with the industry and stakeholders once confirmed, so that we can create an enabling environment for the growth of this sector and reduce the cost to the subscriber. There are a lot more things that are being contemplated as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, it's great that you are taking steps to make sure that data is cheaper in Ghana. But I want to let you know that data is cheaper in Nigeria than in Ghana. But it's good that you have agreed that there is still room for improvement and you are ready to do that. So on policy, you have plans for domain names and cyber security generally, because I could see that at the last vetting of the National Security Minister, you thought most of the questions should be directed to you about cyber security. What plans, policy plans do you have for cyber security generally?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A lot has been done in the past few years on cybersecurity, but a lot more needs to be done. I'm grateful to the House for passing the Cybersecurity Act, which was assented to by the President on 29 December. So now we have a law guiding our cybersecurity interventions. Several initiatives.
You want to give us, give us the details of the act.
Cybersecurity Act 2020, Act 1038.
Of
2020.
Thank you.
Act 1038. This is setting up a cybersecurity authority in place of the center that we have currently. It's giving the power to designate critical information infrastructure, as I just indicated, which will also need to be registered and managed in compliance with set standards which the authority will determine. It's also giving the power to establish computer emergency response teams. What we have done currently is this act will set up the National Computer Emergency Response Center, the national one, which will oversee sector-specific emergency response teams. Now, what the National Security Minister indicated was that we are overseeing this process. Now, the NCA has already set up a computer emergency response team for the telecommunications sector. The Bank of Ghana, in conjunction with the Cybersecurity Center, has set up another one for the financial sector. The security sector also has one, or if they don't, they need one. We need one for the utilities, for the transportation sector. We have also launched one for NITA to oversee the e-government network. All of these computer emergency response sectors receive reports of incidents and act on it under the direction of the National Computer Emergency Response Team. So we're setting up the set architecture here, which is the...
I'm sorry, just on your own words. They need, I will, they need utility companies. You just referred to the Honorable Ejare's question, your answer. You said that the utility companies need. You are now policy leader. Won't your words change to I will provide them with those cyber protection instead of they need, we need?
Point noted, thank you. But the point is that the Cybersecurity Act mandates the Cybersecurity Authority to work with the various sectors to set up their own computer emergency.
Has the Cybersecurity Authority been set up yet? I didn't get the answer.
I didn't get the question.
I was asking whether there is a cybersecurity authority set up after the law was passed.
The law has just been passed, and so we're in the process of setting up those structures. But the center which existed, which is going to be transformed into the authority and beefed up, has already done some work. So in conjunction with these three sectors, they have this infrastructure in place. Now, once the authority is operational, all of this architecture is going to be put in place, and we're going to see more robust defense of our critical national information infrastructure. Currently, there's a technical working group that comprises all the various sectors that have some responsibility for cybersecurity, including the private sector as well, working under the auspices of the center. All that has been formalized in the law and is going to be given even more teeth to be able to bite. We're doing so much work online and in virtual platforms that we need to also scale up our cyber defenses to protect the work that we're all doing in that space. And so it is a matter of critical importance for all of us. And if given the nod, we will work expeditiously to get the center established, up and running, and to be able to undertake its responsibilities under the law, which will protect all of us.
Thank you very much. Enough on policy. Mr. Chairman, if you permit me, I have a short video for my next question.
You have a short what?
Video for my next question.
I think it will be advisable to alert me.
I'm asking.
Honorably, that there's no notice, suddenly video, and then...
No, please,
so,
I'm asking permission before it comes. But before
in future, let's discuss this before.
Okay, thank you very much. You told you were... Yes. It's okay. Enough. Thank you very much. Yes, that's all I need to show to ask my question. Yes. Honorable nominee, the duty of care that we owe to the public as members of parliament is great. Can you explain or justify your unprovoked, illegal assault on Honorable Collins Dauda on the 6th of January in the chamber of the Senate?
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, if you would indulge me. If you would indulge me.
My respected colleague has posed a question. And the question is to the effect that our colleague who is a witness before us attacked another member without provocation. And she anchors it on a video footage. My point here is that there was an incident prior to that footage, because we're all here. Please, wait. Colleague.
Address me, please. Address me.
Mr. Chair, we have a duty to be fair. I am therefore saying, as a preliminary matter, that a chair had been pulled.
Don't worry. I know if she has a problem, she'll tell me.
Mr. Chair, to the extent that she said unprovoked, that is why I wanted to draw your attention. You could have put it properly.
She will answer.
Eric.
Thank you. Honorable Minister, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I answer the question, I think I have to put it on record that as members of the 8th Parliament, a lot happened on the 7th of January that none of us is proud of and can be proud of. And I have been a member of this House. This is my 3rd term in this House. I have never ever witnessed any incident like what took place on the 7th of January 2020. Now, prior to the swearing in of any members of Parliament elect, as was my experience, we entered the chamber on the 7th of January, and every seat is labeled with the name of the member who is assigned to that seat. I entered this chamber on the 7th of January, and no seats were labeled. And so nobody had any idea where they were to sit. And in my estimation, it was supposed to be free seating, then anybody could sit anywhere. Incidentally, this is the same seat that I was sitting on in the House on that day. And Honorable Collins Dauda was sitting next to me. And he kept asking me, oh yeah, then what? Sorry, free her, get up and leave. And I said, I'm not going anywhere.
What is the meaning of that?
That's what I'm explaining. What are you doing here? Get up and leave. And I told him that I'm not going anywhere. Since I don't see any seat in the house with my name or anybody else's name on it, I assume that anybody can sit anywhere. And this is where I choose to sit. I was sitting here when the Member of Parliament for Ashiama, in the company of several other gentlemen, walked up to me, pulled out the seat from the chair I was sitting on. I fell on the floor. And when I got up, I just linked it up with what he had been telling me, Honorable Collins Dowda had been telling me previous, oh yeah, then waha, sorry, free her, oh yeah, then waha, get up and leave. And assume that maybe, and I put it on record that subsequently I've been made to understand that my inference from his earlier comments and the unprovoked assault on me at the time were not linked. And I have apologized to him. But I was pushed to the floor, the chair was pulled from under me, and I fell to my knees right where I'm sitting. And so when I got up, instinctively I made the connection that he may have been in cahoots with the gentleman who did that. And so I said, if you are not going to let me sit on my chair, you are not going to sit on your chair as well. I'm not saying it to justify what happened. The events of the 7th of January 2020 are a blot on the reputation. 2021 are a blot on the reputation of the 8th Parliament. And I know that subsequently we all realized that things got out of hand and we could have acted differently. And I've apologized to Honorable Collins Dowda. I'm yet to get an apology from Honorable Ernest Nogwe, who pulled the chair from under me and pushed me to my knees. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
As a follow-up, yes. I spoke to Honorable Collins Dowda 5 minutes before I entered this chamber. And he told me that you have failed to apologize to him 5 minutes before I entered this chamber.
Honorable Member,
said,
you are not capable of giving evidence in that respect.
So, my instruction is that you have not apologized to Honorable Collins Dowda.
Honorable Member, don't answer that one. Don't.
No, Chairman, the nominee said she has apologized to Honorable Collins Dowda. The nominee further said that Honorable Nogwe Ashiama is yet to apologize to her. So it's now her word against the Honorable Ejare. So
that's my ruling. Honorable Ejare is not in a position to use her word against us because she's not the party.
No, but
she can only repeat what
her nominee is in the witness box. So let us state her answer for our purposes tomorrow. Okay. She's up. Okay. So we've taken note of it. We've taken note of it. Thank you. Okay, Honor Eric. You have some information?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yes. That's fine. Yes, I gave you the floor earlier.
Thank you very much. Honorable Minister Designate. Yes, please. Congratulations. You're ready? Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Look absent-minded.
I thought the question would follow, so I was waiting.
I'm not asking a follow-up question, right? You're okay? Very good. Honorable Minister, I know you have a lot of experience in this sector, and you've worked with Westel and other state entities, and has been involved in a lot of state acquisitions in the telecom sector. Government recently assumed ownership of Airtel Tigo, and is going to, I want to find out from you, what steps you are going to take the running of this entity, and the public will want to know how government intends to run this entity that is taking over. Please, can you address us on this acquisition by government? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Government is in the process of taking over Airtel Tigo. The process hasn't completed as yet, but it is something that we're going to do very quickly, and it is at the request of the operators, the shareholders of Airtel Tigo, who've indicated that they want to exit the Ghanaian market. And government, in view of the importance of the sector, the role it plays in the whole telecoms ecosystem, the number of jobs, direct and indirect, that are supported by this entity, has decided that in the short term, it would take over the assets and liabilities of Airtel Tigo. Government is yet to take a decision on what it will do in the long term with this asset, but we would engage with the stakeholders and appropriate consultants and advisors in taking this decision. But our intention is to maintain it as a going concern and to ensure that we protect the jobs and livelihoods that are dependent on this entity. So I can use this medium to assure all the workers, contractors, suppliers, service providers that do business with Airtel Tigo that once the process is complete, government steps into the shoes of the company and would engage with them on a going concern basis. Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Minister, in today's program, as today is the 15th February 2021, we are vetting you as Minister Designate for Communication and Digitization. Digitization has been added to your portfolio, and Ghanaians digitalization. That's a mouthful. Anyway, it's been added to your portfolio, and Ghanaians want to know how you're going to implement the smart city agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's a difference between digitization and digitalization. The portfolio is communications and digitalization. Now, digitization is just the process of converting analog to digital, analog information from a physical format into a digital one. And when this process is leveraged to improve upon business processes, it is called digitalization, using digital technology and digitized data to input how work's done, transform how customers and companies engage and interact, and create new revenue streams and efficiencies. That will ultimately lead to digital transformation, which is our goal. And so I'm excited that this has been added to the portfolio. We were doing it anyway, but it's now going to be formalized. And it will enable us to provide greater oversight over all the digital initiatives taking place in all sectors, and supervise and monitor their work, set standards, and ensure that there's a reduction in duplication and waste. Earlier on, we heard about the Accra Intelligent Road Transport project, which had to be abrogated because there was an existing project ongoing in the Ministry of National Security, which could assume those responsibilities, and so there was no need to engage in a different contract to do that. That's what happens when there is no entity providing oversight on what's going on in this space in the various sectors. And so I'm excited that at least that gap will be filled with the ministry, which can we can advise on planned contracts and notify agencies that some initiatives may already exist. As a matter of information, we've already acquired an enterprise license for Microsoft for the public sector. If the Public Procurement Authority is not aware and agencies are not aware of it, in contracts that they are going to undertake, they may also be procuring what government already has, and that would end up costing government more because we'll be paying twice or three times for infrastructure and services that we already have because nobody has oversight over what's going on in the sector. In the same vein, as part of this agenda, we will ensure that there is greater interoperability of the systems that are procured so they can speak to each other. And there will be better security for that architecture. And the critical national information infrastructure being procured in the various sectors would also be identified and assisted so that they operate much better. And the data that is generated by all these systems too, we need to understand that it is valuable. Sitting in silos, it is useless to anybody, but we would put in place proper data governance systems so that its ownership, utilization, how it is handled and protected, and privacy concerns are all written into the contracts from inception and will be monitored to ensure that it is done properly. We would also look at setting up a data exchange platform so it is easier to retrieve information. And I get excited at the possibility because it's going to create even more jobs for data scientists, data analysts, and others who will be looking at the information and gleaning information from it, which will in turn guide policy formulation on the basis of concrete information that's extracted from data that we already have, but which nobody is looking at or utilizing. It's been said that data is the new oil, and if properly managed, we can get a lot of resources from it, but we need to be able to look at it. Now, the example I use is the gold mining areas. If you don't know what you're looking at, you may see gold as a pile of dirt, but a miner who knows what he's looking at and knows what is in there would extract the gold from what you see as a pile of dirt. The data we're generating now is akin to the pile of dirt, but there are very valuable nuggets in there, which we need to extract and utilize for planning and other purposes. There's a lot that has already been done, but one of the key things that I believe I would focus on, if given the nod, is to provide a means of linking the assets that already exist in government and utilizing it for the benefit of the people, particularly digital infrastructure. You have ECG owning fiber, Gridco owning fiber, NITA having some fiber. It's all scattered. We want to do rural telephony. They need a backbone. It will either have to be fiber or satellite. How do we extend connectivity to all district assemblies and offices across the country, schools, hospitals, police stations, without a robust digital infrastructure? By linking all these assets in government, linking it together and building up on it, we can have a network on which even the private sector can ride to extend services to all the outlying areas. And so that's one thing that I'm going to, if given the nod, have conversations with the necessary stakeholders to see how government can derive maximum benefit from assets it already owns and has paid for, but which is sitting in silos and from which we're not deriving much benefit. There's a lot more that we have in mind, but this in a nutshell is some of the things that we would do once given the nod.
Thank you very much for this elaborate explanation. Honourable Minister, MTN, Vodafone, are major players in the telco sector in Ghana. And their transactions, even with mobile money operations, far outstrip that of banks in recent reports. They've now become very huge players in the internet service provision space and are gradually pushing out local ISPs in that space. What would you want to do to protect the local players within that space, the local ISP players? Thank you.
That's a very difficult question, but I'll attempt an answer. Now, we granted licenses to predominantly Ghanaian companies to also operate in this space, but they're faced with these global giants that are muscling them away from even the small niche that they occupied in this space. It's incumbent on us not to give with one hand and take with the other. And so I'll engage with the industry and see how we can also provide some space for the local ISPs to provide fixed data. That's the licenses that we gave them, but we've also empowered these giants to also operate in this space. So because of their might, they're crowding them out. We need to have some conversations about what to do in this fixed data space so that our local companies, broadband wireless operators, can also thrive. It's a capital-intensive industry, and if you're not guaranteed significant profits, it's difficult to keep plowing in investment, knowing that it will be almost impossible to retrieve it. And so government has to step in and see how it can also assist. The infrastructure sharing that I talked about earlier can help, so that the local ISPs do not have to put in their own capital investment, but can utilize the existing infrastructure of these global giants to also compete in this space. But these are all conversations that we'll have about active infrastructure sharing. We can also look at pricing policies and all that, but we'll have to consult with the regulator and the network operators and the local ISPs to see how we can provide them with some relief. The cost of locating on the towers owned by the private tower companies has also become an issue, but I know that the NCA has had some conversations with them and had some studies done on the pricing that they are offering on this market, and it's due to also call them in and have some conversations about them lowering their prices or rationalizing their prices in this space as well. So if given the nod, we'll continue with the stakeholder engagement and fashion out a policy that will ensure the survival of the local ISPs in this area as well. Thank you.
Yes. Honorable Gada.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honorable nominee, you mentioned the Cybersecurity Act 2020, Act 1038, as one of the attempts, bold attempts, that has been made to deal with the emerging threat of cyber insecurity in our country. You deserve some commendation for that effort. However, if you look at sections 72, starting from section 72 up to section 76, the Cybersecurity Authority assumes some powers of interception therein. Now, my point is, you will recall sometime in 2016, the government at the time made a bold attempt to introduce a harmonized legislation on the interception of postal packets and telecommunication. You are very much aware about that attempt. But the point is, at the point in time when that bill was introduced before this House, the political opposition at the time made so many damning remarks about that bill. The net effect of their condemnation was that that bill was a spy bill crafted to interfere with the rights of citizens and Article 18 of our Constitution. Would you say that this new Cybersecurity Act 2020 that you shepherded is crafted to spy on our citizens, like the political opposition in 2016 stated?
Mr. Chairman, when the Ministry of Communications was given the responsibility for cybersecurity and the issue of interception orders also came up, I smiled to myself and said, what goes around comes around. Because the political opposition you referred to, I was one of the key voices in there as well. And so we took the pains to ensure that whatever the law enforcement agents do is on the approval or with the approval or the authority of the High Court, so that there can be judicial oversight over their actions. And it is hoped that that would help protect the rights of citizens, because they would have to demonstrate with evidence before a judge why they need that information and for what period. So,
Chairman, let me come in. This is a very sensitive matter for every Ghanaian who wants the letter and spirit of Article 18.2, I believe, to be respected. Now, you are saying that the language as crafted, every Ghanaian wants to be assured of the privacy of his communication. Other than that, there will be no social harmony or social stability. Even marital stability will suffer if persons have easy access to those information. Can you read the text for our purposes to understand that the law that you shepherded respects the right to privacy of communication? Read it. We don't want to hear what pertains elsewhere. Let's see your words and see whether that judicial limitation was provided for.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Clause 71 of the Act provides.
Act number, Chairman. Act number. Clause 71 of Act.
Clause 7, Section 71 of Act 1038, the Cybersecurity Act 2020, provides, and with your permission, I read, the head notice, application for interception of traffic data. 71.1, a senior investigative officer authorized by a designated officer may apply ex parte to the High Court for an interception warrant to collect or record traffic data stored or in real time. 2, the senior investigative officer authorized by a designated officer who makes an application under subsection 1 shall demonstrate to the satisfaction of the court that there are reasonable grounds to believe that traffic data associated with a specified communication and related to or connected with a person under investigation is reasonably required for the purposes of a specific criminal investigation.
My next question has to do with the conduct of the Director General of the NCA, and going through the ministry standing over those, it's obvious the NCA is one of the agencies that you oversight as Minister for Communications. Now, they said NCA Director General, Mr. Joe Anochi, was designated as a representative of the new patriotic party in the just ended presidential and parliamentary elections at the EC as a representative. And yet, when you go through the National Communications Authority Act 2008, the Director General is appointed by the President pursuant to Article 195 of the Constitution. That effectively makes him a public servant. He comes under the purview of the Public Services Commission. Now, as the sector minister, did you see anything wrong with the way and manner the Director General of the NCA was designated as a representative of the MPP in the just ended elections? Where should his fidelity lie? Is it his party or the state, given the fact that he had now become Director General?
The question is, do I see anything wrong? No, I don't.
Why? Why don't you see anything wrong with his conduct, given the fact that as Director General, he had now become state property, I mean, so to speak. His fidelity was now to the state. But he elected to represent a political party. Does that not raise issues of conflict? Because in one breath, we're expected to see him as somebody acting for the state as Director General of the NCA. But all of a sudden, we found him in the EC strong room in political party colors. Does that not offend against the rules?
Mr. Chairman, I think the cardinal rule for every professional is in the performance of their professional obligations, not to allow their political leanings to color or affect the performance of the official duties. I was a minister then, but when I was performing my duties as a minister, I represented the entire country and performed my functions to everybody, regardless of their political leanings. And that is what everyone should do. When I had to mount a campaign platform to campaign for the New Patriotic Party, I would take off my minister hat and wear my MPP member hat and do it to the best of my ability. And so in my opinion, that's exactly what the Director General of the NCA would do. When he's performing his duties as the Director General of the NCA, he would do so to the best of his ability in a professional manner. When he is acting as a member of the New Patriotic Party, he would also do so to the best of his ability in his most partisan manner. I don't see anything wrong with that. Thank you.
Honorable Nobini, the National Signal Bureau, and an act was passed recently to give legal backing to the existence of that body. It used to be the BNC, Bureau of National Communications. It operates directly under the ministry responsible for national security. Similarly, we have the National Cyber Security Center, which is now the National Cyber Security Authority under the new Act 1038. Now, this body operates under the Ministry of Communication. My point is, you have two state agencies responsible for the fight against threats in our cyberspace. One is responsible for security agencies, that is the National Signals Bureau, whilst the other one has general jurisdiction. Don't you think that for purposes of effective collaboration, these two agencies of state ought to have been operating under the same umbrella body, maybe one ministry? If it's national security, it's national security. If it's Ministry for Communications, it ought to be the Ministry for National Communications for purposes of effective collaboration amongst the two.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This was discussed at length in various stakeholder consultations, and the decision was taken to leave them under separate jurisdictions. As I indicated, there has to be sector-specific infrastructure for cybersecurity, and it's already being done. The National Signals Bureau, I keep thinking of them as BNC in my head because that's what I knew when I was dealing with them. The National Signals Bureau, which takes over the operations of the Bureau of National Communications, has always worked very, very closely with the Cybersecurity Center. And they are represented in the Joint Cybersecurity Committee, which has been set up by the law, by the Cybersecurity Act. They necessarily have to work closely together in the same vein, and they are overseeing the cybersecurity of the security architecture, which is fine in this country. Just as the Bank of Ghana is overseeing the financial services, the NCA is overseeing the telecommunications sector. Sector-specific incidents will be addressed by them, and they will inform the National Cybersecurity Authority, which would share that experience with the other sector sets, so that if there is a common cyber threat that is being experienced by them, they can also address them. It will have the technical capability to share information securely amongst all of them. But I believe that it sitting where it is was planned and thought of. And in the architecture that we're developing in our cybersecurity ecosystem, it works. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks. Yeah, that'll be fair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honorable Minister Designate, congratulations. I want to ask questions on what I would say bother the ordinary person on the street, which are very fundamental under your sector. The first one is whether you can tell us the policy on mobile money transactions. On mobile money transactions, especially regarding the kind of money which is flowing through the system, and whether probably there will be any reason to even tax such transactions. What are the implications of such a policy?
You are leading me into temptation. You are leading
Please don't be tempted. Stay within bounds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the report I have from the Common Platform, which monitors mobile money transactions, indicated that in January 2021, monthly usage from 344.6 million transactions was 81.3 billion Ghana cedis, which passed through mobile money platforms in January alone. And it generated 124.5 million in transaction fees to the mobile money operators. And it provides further breakdown of transaction types. In my opinion, and I'm expressing my opinion here, the transaction fees generated by operators from these huge traffic and volumes on mobile money platforms ought to be taxed. That's my personal opinion. I've said so on several platforms. I'm not saying that individuals who send and receive mobile money should be taxed. However, the fees they pay to all the network operators for the service is revenue that they earn, and the state has to be interested in that and has to tax them for it. I've been further informed that some of them are even phasing out the sale of scratch cards and insisting on top-ups from mobile money. What that means is that the revenue that the state would have gotten from the sale and receipt of scratch cards is lost to the state. And they are charging 10% for each top-up on mobile money, which is money that they are generating, which is currently beyond the reach of the state. So while we're losing money on the traditional revenue streams because of the evolution of technology, we have disabled the state from gaining revenue from the new streams that these network operators are getting.
Honorable Minister, when you say we have disabled the state, who is disabling the state? Is it the state which is excluding
or the state has disabled itself?
Yes.
Because currently, mobile money and all revenue generated from it are not taxed as financial transactions. So I believe we need to look at that again.
But Chairman, still there, this is an indirect taxation. Once you charge the transaction, that will be taxed on mobile money, accept it or not, or give it any other name. There would be passed over by the telecos to the consumer. So you will still be taxing the consumer indirectly. What do you say to that?
Mr. Chairman, they are already charging consumers for the use of the service. And that's 10% per transaction. I think if you send, you pay 10%. If you receive, you pay 10%. Is that it? So both ways, they are, I stand to be corrected. It is 1%. Okay. That revenue that they are getting from the transaction fees, I believe the GRA and the Minister for Finance ought to be interested in that. As I indicated, 124.5 million in January alone in transaction fees for mobile money. If even the state is getting, I don't know what percentage of that, 10% of that per month, that's 12 million. That's 12.5 million per month. Significant if you multiply it over the year. And I think we need to have those conversations in view of the fact that the state is losing revenue from the traditional revenue streams because of the evolution of technology. The number of people who make normal voice calls is declining. And so the revenue that the state would have got from that through the communication service tax is declining. And that's organic. It's not going to go up anytime soon. We're using more data to do more, which is great. This is a conversation that is being had globally. Other over-the-top services are taking away revenue from the traditional streams, which is being lost. New revenue streams are being generated. And a lot of studies are being done globally from the GSMA, the ITU, the CTO, all looking at this space. Of course, you will get opposition from the operators on the imposition of taxes or levies on these new revenue streams. That's to be expected. They're getting free money. Why should they share it with anybody?
Chairman, just
if I might just conclude on that.
Just excuse me to have a bite of your cherry. The Telecom Chamber have repeatedly petitioned your office and raised concerns about the heavy taxation of the industry and its implications on cost of data. Will you still insist that taxes on the transaction of up to 125 million, arguably, maybe if you multiply that times 12, is still the way to resolve the problems of the industry? Or you just want to look at it as a revenue stream for government? And when you say we need to have a conversation, you are now a lead policy person. So you should be speaking in providing the leadership, not throw it back to us. You have to take a decision. So your advice to a Minister of Finance would be, he should consider taxing the mobile money regime, but focusing essentially on the, as you call it, transaction fees that the telecos earn. Is that the case?
Mr. Chairman, it's a long-standing position of mine. I have made this known in several fora. And I believe the time has come for us to look at the whole slew of revenue that is derived from this sector and see how we can rationalize it. Some would have to go, and new ones may have to be imposed. And at the end of the day, once we have that stakeholder consultation on the state revenue from this sector and the impact on the business, I believe we can arrive at some acceptable middle ground, which will not overburden the industry, but will ensure that government also doesn't lose the revenues that it is generating from the sector. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The next one is also another public interest issue, SIM registration and re-registration. We are given the impression that you have to register your SIM card with your ID and everything, and it can be traced to you. But we also get the impression that it's very easy to just register a SIM card. People register every time that you hear that maybe the police have swooped on persons. You find out they may have even registered about 100 SIM cards, and they use it as and when they want to use them for whatever purposes. Now, what is the current status of SIM registration in view of the many cases of online criminal activities?
Mr. Chairman, I did indicate at one of the press conferences I had, I believe, in October 2019, that we had taken the decision to revisit the SIM registration regime and do it properly. One of the main concerns that have plagued SIM registration in the past was the lack of an effective ID to verify the identity of whoever was registering their SIMs. Nowhere in the world can you just acquire a SIM card without registration. And looking at the uses to which we're putting our mobile devices, it is not just a mobile phone for talking now. It is your bank, it is your office, it is your entertainment device, and it's storing very confidential information of yours. And I'm sure when we leave our phones at home, we feel as if something is missing. It's because of how dependent we've become on it. People are also committing a lot of heinous crimes, hiding anonymously behind their mobile devices. So it is important for the security of our states and all our citizens to do the SIM registration properly, so that we can easily identify who is using what SIM for what purpose, if need be, when the security agencies need it. Now, we did give some timelines, but COVID made it difficult for us to implement it. And I think I can announce that if I am confirmed or approved by this House, one of the first things that we would institute would be the re-registration of SIMs. Now, some have already registered their SIMs. You only need to verify your status with your network operator by dialing, I think, *400# or so, I forget it, but dialing a short code, you can verify your SIM registration status with your network operator. You may be asked to come in and bring a valid ID to authenticate or update your registration details. There will be, we're discussing the policy, and all the stakeholders have been working with the regulator so far to flesh out the details of it. And we've had several meetings on it. So they're all on all fours with it. It will enable us to have a SIM registry. And then not only the SIM will be registered, but the device on which the SIM is used as well. And we hope that by that, we will cut down the theft and resale of devices. That's one of the commonest petty crimes that are occurring in our country currently. People stealing mobile phones and tablets and selling them quickly. If the device is also registered, once it is reported stolen, it can be blocked and it cannot be unlocked. I know there's a thriving business in unlocking of phones here. I have bad news for those in that industry. Ghana will be signed on to the global central identity register. And so if a phone is stolen from outside and sold here, it cannot be used here as well. If it is blocked there, it will be blocked here. This system, once in place, can even generate new business opportunities in insurance for devices, and as is done in other jurisdictions, your service provider can give you a device and tie you to a data plan and upgrade your device as and when necessary, depending on the data plan. But it is imperative that we register our SIM cards, imperative that we register our devices. We're working with the industry to get that done. We will notify the public when the arrangements are ready, and we hope that everybody will take advantage of this new opportunity to secure our devices. And there will be a cut-off date where unregistered SIMs will be blocked. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And last one, radio station.
Before you proceed, the Public Affairs Department wants me to announce that we are available, or we are live on GTV News, or GTV 24, or GTV News, not on GTV. Like people are complaining that they can't monitor us on GTV, so we are available on the other network, the 24-hour news network, and on our Facebook platform. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My last one is on radio stations. Radio stations. The NCA is under your ministry. You supervise their work. Now, what we hear is that Ursula has led to the closure of radio stations, or has been at the forefront of getting some radio stations closed down. What really is the situation and the story about closure of radio stations.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ursula has not closed down any radio station. Let me start by that. Now, just to summarize, the National Communications Authority is mandated by Section 2 of the Electronic Communications Act, 2008, Act 775, to regulate the radio spectrum designated or allocated for use by broadcasting organizations and providers of broadcasting services. Upon assumption of office, I informed them to enforce their law. That's all that I did. Currently, there are 625 authorized FM stations in Ghana as at the end of 2020. 625. A total of 452, representing 72%, are in operation, and 173, representing 28%, are not yet in operation. In 2017, following my charge to them to enforce their law across sectors, not just in broadcasting, the NCA conducted an audit exercise, and which indicated that 144 stations had committed several infractions, which necessitated that they be sanctioned. There's a breakdown of who did what, but I'm just giving a summary. At the end of the exercise, 56 FM stations were closed down. 43 of those stations have submitted fresh applications for authorization, out of which 30 have been processed and granted new authorizations to operate. The remaining 13 applications, I'm informed, will be processed within the first quarter of 2021. So by the end of March, the remaining 13 applications would be processed. Mr. Chairman.
Process for what?
Well, there's a procedure. Maybe let me recap. After the FM audit, certain fines were imposed ranging from several millions of cedis to thousands of cedis on some of the affected stations. Some operators started paying those fines. There was a huge outcry that the fines were too much. And so I came to this house and announced that upon consultation with the board, we're taking the decision to reduce the fines. The board itself took further action to reduce the fines to 1 year. Some had been in default for over 16 years, and they had calculated it backwards. Dissatisfied with all that, some of these stations went to court, or the tribunal. Now the tribunal decided that the NCA acted wrongfully in imposing fines on those whose authorization had expired and had not applied for renewal. They could only impose fines on those who had valid authorizations. Now, if you do not apply for renewal 3 months at least before your license expires, it means you do not have a valid authorization, and you revert to the position of somebody who is now going to apply for an authorization. And so the NCA had to refund the monies that they had collected from those that they fined. And if the law doesn't allow you to operate without a license, then you do not have the right to operate without a license. And that's what led to the shutdown of the radio stations. So it was by operation of law, and there are several cases that decided that at the tribunal. And I can leave copies of it for the House, if so required.
Chairman, just a follow-up. So you are in the political space, freedom of expression, guaranteed constitutional right. The vehicle to express it is either through our mouth as we do, or through the medium of radio and television. Walking the delicate path of a balance, will you consider the closure of FM stations an affront to freedom of expression or a negative to its enhancement in our country?
Absolutely not. To enjoy any right, you come to equity with clean hands. But if the same law which grants you the right to operate as a radio station in furtherance of the freedom of expression, you flout that law as a citizen of this country, you are subject to the laws of this land and the sanctions applicable. And we cannot by any stretch of the imagination say when the law is being applied, it means it's an infringement on the right to free expression.
My question is within the context of your own reference to a judicial decision that those fines, assuming that is what informed a closure, you had done harm to freedom of expression.
The judicial decision was that they did not have the right to impose fines, and they should enforce the law which applies to those who operate without authorization.
So did the imposition of the fines occasion the closure of any FM station?
No. The imposition of a fine did not occasion the closure of any FM station. Those operating without valid authorizations in violation of the law were closed down in implementation, in the enforcement of the law.
Chairman, please, if you may indulge me, follow. So, Honorable Minister Designate, from all that you have said in respect of the radio stations and NCA, closure and imposition of fines, strongly you are making a case that you had personally